I'm Ted Arnott. This is my idea for my Unit 13 final major project. So it's a virtual reality rhythm game. If you've seen like Beat Saber, where you have to hit things at the right time, but it's based around the idea of drumming. So it's a narrative based game. So if I go to the next one. Oh yeah, it's called Drum Tales is the name at the moment. There's some logos here, and then the inspiration behind it is that I feel like VR is still quite a new technology, and I feel like there's still not that many games on it, and there's still quite a gap there. And because of games like Beat Saber that have already been successful in VR, it sort of shows that another rhythm game, as long as it sort of changes it up a bit, has room for that. The other inspiration is games like Parappa the Rapper, which is sort of one of the first ever rhythm games, and that, unlike a lot of rhythm games, had an actual story to it, because I wanted to add a story to this, because not many rhythm games have stories, so I felt like that's a good game to look at. I also play the drums, so I feel like it's something I can relate to and then have more knowledge on. And yeah, I feel like rhythm games are just something anyone can play, and it's something, for an audience, sort of anyone can jump into it and have fun with it, rather than it being only accessible to a certain age or something like that. Another thing I want the game to tackle is sort of that anyone can be a musician, and the final stage of the game. The story of the game is you are sort of this. I suppose a musician, someone that was playing the drums, and at the start of the game you listen to sort of like a radio broadcast of a big festival announcement, and the big headline act is your old band, and they go through the members of the band, but they say before the band hit success they dropped their drummer, and then when they got a new drummer in they hit the big time, and then they've made it to this headline festival. And so later in the game, you sort of go back to when you first got your drum kit and you were trying out for that band, and you can sort of redo every big moment, so you can sort of keep your spot in that. So then the reason I wanted to go for the festival act is because I've wanted at the start of the game you can enter your band name or your name, and then later on, because as I'm someone that's been to a lot of festivals, every festival I've been to, all the headliners have always been male acts. There's never been a female act. It's mainly, especially in rock genres, which is what a lot of drumming is in, they're all male acts, and I want it to be so anyone can sort of see their name at the top, anyone can sort of relate to working through with their instrument. So things I'm going to research to help me is sort of other musicians. I know there are a lot of musicians. Ones I've looked at is like Ed Sheeran, who started off just like busking on the streets and was never, he didn't just get signed straight away. He had to work really, really hard for where he is now. As well as that, I mean, there's a lot of games where you progress through as a character, and you can see your character develop. Sort of like FIFA and a lot of sports games now, there's a story where you start as a player and you sort of start as nothing, no one. But you can control the key events to get your player, your character, to where you want them to be. As well as that, working with VR is pretty technical, so I feel like, and there's a lot of research to do to sort of get a head start on any problems that I might encounter. So that's a mood board. So yeah, I mean the story, as I explained, because it's going to be the demo of a wider game where you would have the full story of this musician, and it could be a part of a series, hence the name sort of Drum Tales. Could be, there could be lots of characters, could be anyone. But the demo I'm going to make will have 3 levels. The first one will be where you're in the garage, where you first got your drum kit, progressing to a sort of a local venue with the band. If you're successful in the level with the gameplay, which will be similar to sort of Guitar Hero, where the notes will come on the screen and you'll have to play the right one based on a sort of a colour. So each part of the drum will have its own colour, so red, blue, green, and on the screen that colour will come down and you've got to hit the right one and it should play a little song or tune. And if you're successful, you'll go to the next level. If not, you just replay it. And there'll be like free play mode in it, so you can just experiment and have all the time you want before you go straight to the level. And you'll progress like that until you're at the festival, where there'll sort of be the cutscene of that announcement of the festival, but instead of it saying the dropped member, you'll be included in that, and it's sort of like you changing the story to being successful for your character. Let's skip one. So it's a technical demo, and I wanted to make that because I mean, for my final project last year, it was quite a technical, mechanic-based project, and I wanted to carry that on going into VR, as I said, because it's still new and there's a big gap for a new sort of narrative-based rhythm game that doesn't really exist in VR. As well as that, I'm going to go to university to do sort of a games technology or programming degree, and I feel like something like this will be really useful. Some of the threats for the project will be, because it's VR, I don't actually have a VR headset at home, so I'll only be able to test things when I'm at college, and I don't know if there are other people doing VR projects, but they'd have to be sharing, but if there isn't, I can hopefully get access to that as much as I can. As well, I found out VR files are really large in Unreal, which is always a problem. Especially trying to back them up and have them on memory states can always take a while, and there's always crashes and things like that. They're sort of the main threats. So yeah, thank you. Feel free to help me test it.
I'd love to.
Are there any questions?
Why did you choose this particular style, format?
As in,
why did you choose this kind of Beat Saber-esque?
I just feel like a rhythm game is fairly. It's a big social thing, and anyone can just. It's something like games like sort of like the Nintendo consoles, where I feel like your whole family could play that. A lot of those games, it's not just like sort of a horror game. You're not going to have your whole family jumping in to play that. Whereas a VR thing, anyone wants to put that headset on. They want to experience that, as it's still new, and not many people have experienced that technology. So I feel like that's something anyone can play, and it can reach a really wide market.
Cool.
First thing is, I'm assuming the way yours is going to be different from the other Beat Saber on the market is the story mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the question I have is that are the songs going to change throughout the 3 different levels, or is it the same one getting harder?
That's a good question. I imagine it would be at the start. It would sort of, because I'm assuming the player's never going to have played the drums before, so I can't just throw them into playing an actual song. So it would probably be quite a simple rhythm, sort of trying to just incorporate each sound, but pretty simple, something to just follow along with. And then sort of like how in Guitar Hero you can have the difficulty of a song be just playing 3 of the colours, and then you can go to where it's faster and you have 5. So as the player progresses through the game, hopefully they'll get better at the game, and then later on it could go from being a rhythm to an actual song. But yeah, I'd have to research into what that could be, or having to actually make my own sort of rhythm. Yeah.
Definitely. So do you envisage this, you obviously referenced Parappa quite a bit, and the one thing behind that was the idea that the music was all unique to that, therefore negating the idea that you have to pay royalties and things. Do you imagine this product would be something that would have to exist with licensing with big record labels to use soundtracks eventually? As
a wider game, yes, and I feel like a lot of successful Beat Saber or Guitar Hero people get to play along to songs that they enjoy. One of the original ideas for the game was sort of you could go back in time to big genres in time, so you could go back to when the Beatles were big or Oasis, but I felt like I'd have to get all the license for that, whereas with this demo the player can just play sort of fun rhythms which aren't tied to an actual band that you'd have to get royalties for. But if it was as a wider game, you could, and then you can always add more songs to it that people would want to play.
Okay, so that would come into kind of issues around DLC and things like that, paying for packs and stuff, like Rock Band kind of mechanic. Yeah.
I'd try to avoid sort of that. I'd want the game to just be, you pay for what you get, and you can because there'll be the free play mode. So I feel like if there could be songs included that they could play along in there. But for the story, it would probably just be a set
Yeah.
few songs or rhythms. Yeah.
Do you think, as a product, this has the element of being an educational game potentially as well? Like, will it teach people the fundamentals that they could then be a better drummer as a result of learning?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not designed to be like a professional, realistic drumming like simulation.
Yeah.
There's more meant to be focused on just having fun. But yeah, because I've known pretty much every player that's going to play it is never going to play the drums.
Yeah.
I want it to be intuitive, and in that first level, it's more of a tutorial where it's not just like you're reading stuff on screen, but there's more sort of hints of just like how each sound sort of works together and
Yeah.
what are the main sort of.
And like will you have things like where if you hit the drum in the right spot that you'll get a better sound and things like that, or you'll get different sounds eventually?
Yeah, I'm
like,
hoping the actual drumming itself will be fairly detailed, and if you hit it lightly, it will play a quieter sound. If you hit it quite heavily, it will be a harder sound. So there's a lot of experimenting the player can do, and
yeah.
as there's the sort of free play, you can have as much time as you need before you actually go into the level of it.
Cool. You said about the around going back to the issues idea, the inclusivity sort of aspect of enabling in terms of the people to create profiles and create their own sort of background and things. You focus specifically on the gender inequality in this genre. Like,
Yeah.
how will this address it specifically?
Because I feel like if you look at examples of recent festivals and look at headliners, I think on the PowerPoint there's Reading Festival and festivals that was Ballmasters, and it's all the headliners are all male bands, and I know Reading in 20 years only had one act that is a female fronted band headline it.
Yeah.
So I feel like if at the start of the game you can enter your band, you can enter your name, and it can sort of just show that, unlike what these huge events and festivals are sort of saying, it's sort of anyone can be there.
Yeah.
And it sort of is more just to just promote anyone being able to get into music and being able to sort of see themselves at the top.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's quite nice. So that would be some part of the menu system or something like that. You'd actually see that visualised.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyone else got anything?
Yeah, when you said like you got kicked out of your old band in the last mission, would it be a kind of rivalry kind of thing to prove you're better than that band?
It will be you in that band and sort of trying to change it so you don't get kicked out and you're actually part of that band. So it's sort of you sort of seeing yourself.
So that's the reward, is that you're actually in the band at the end?
Because it'll be at the start and you'll sort of be I think it'll try to show that you're sort of like a failure. It'll be sort of like a fairly sort of dingy apartment, and it'll sort of be you wanting to change that, and then you actually have the opportunity to sort of know like what will happen if you don't keep working at it, and then they can, as you progress, you'll end up staying with that and being part of the band's success rather than seeing it as a sort of outsider.
In terms of the issues and things like that are synonymous with rock bands, if you're in a career mode and you're in a rock band, are you going to touch on issues like, I don't know, like drug use or, there's some of the controversial topics that you see in the press about, especially if you're going through history and things like that. If you look at drummers, they're normally synonymous with being the most reckless member of the band and things like that.
I feel like it's something that could be included. I feel like as it's the demo, there's only going to be the 3 levels, so
you won't do that as part of your demo, but
it's something I could incorporate maybe sort of in the middle level, because that would be sort of when you've got your first sort of gig, but it's a smaller event, and that could be a sort of because I feel like that's something you can incorporate at the start when the player are not in the band. It could have been maybe a problem they've had in the past, but another decision they can sort of be faced with, but then actually say no to it and carry on with just focus on the drums. So I feel like it's something that's important to include. If it's not in the demo, it probably would be something in the wider game, because I know it's a big part of sort of rock and the music industry.
I feel based on what you said earlier, where he says it's kind of like for everyone.
Yeah, that's another point.
I don't think putting drugs in it straight away would be exactly like,
No.
if I'm giving it to my kid, I want drugs in it.
Yeah.
It could be a potential side
Yeah.
option,
Yeah, definitely.
but not
it's something you have
in
to.
the main thing. If you're putting it for everyone,
Yeah.
so I feel
Yeah,
that kind
that's a good
of answers
point.
itself.
It's kind of it's difficult in terms of like it's something that you do associate with, but yeah, I think if you're going down the family-friendly gaming experience,
Yeah,
you wouldn't
definitely.
want Keith Moon sort of style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had a
Don't want drumming.
No,
a little menu, like an information thing that popped up talking about like the history of like the region you're in.
Well,
Like if it's Reading, then you could talk about like the bands that are playing other than your band and like their history or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
or like allude. Again, there's like there's lots of things you could tap into, like giving bits of information or doing stories that are similar to actual drummers,
Yeah, like
famous drummers.
Yeah.
loading screens, and then on the loading screens give a little information
Yeah, that was
thing on the
another part
event.
was going to have about events or other sort of famous drummers and sort of
Mm.
just
It'd be
a bit
quite
of
interesting, like this.
information.
In terms of inclusivity as well, with the VR sort of mechanics, like it takes away the need, like the Wii, it makes it much more intuitive and people can pick up and play a game without
Yeah.
knowing it. And like one of the things, like the famous the Def Leppard drummer only being one-armed, things
Yeah.
like that. In terms of like the inclusivity side of things, you could try and like potentially.
Yeah, because I
cover-
wanted to show anyone can sort of be a musician, and I think a lot of people can relate to sort of being at the start where you're just struggling to get into it.
Yeah,
So I feel like it can sort of something people can relate to, and they can definitely it can just show anyone can just pick up the game, but it can also just apply to any sort of instrument if it's drumming or anything. So anyone can just get into it,
definitely. Yeah,
no matter what. Yeah.
that's really good.